Direct News TV. July 4, 2023. Russia-Ukraine war updates. Kyiv reports attacks in Kharkiv, Kherson. Agricultural bank proposal unworkable, says Russia. A spokeswoman for the Russian Foreign Ministry says proposals to set up a subsidiary of the Russian State Agricultural Bank for the purpose of the Black Sea grain deal are unworkable. Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova was commenting on a Financial Times report that the EU had proposed a special subsidiary that could be connected to the SWIFT international payment system, which the bank itself has been cut off from. Russia has long threatened to pull out of the Black Sea grain agreement, complaining that promises to remove barriers to its exports of grain and fertilizer have not been fulfilled. In mid-May, it agreed to renew the deal for 2 months but has repeatedly said it sees no basis to extend it again this month when it expires. Russia sees no basis to extend grain deal, ministry. The Russian Foreign Ministry says, less than 2 weeks before the expiry date, that Moscow sees no basis for renewing the Black Sea grain deal. In a statement, the ministry said Russia was doing everything so that all ships covered by the deal could leave the Black Sea before it expires on July 17. Russian shelling wounds 31 people in Kharkiv. Kharkiv's governor, Ola Synhyubov, has raised the number of people wounded in an attack in Pervomaisky to 31, including 9 children. Synhyubov said on Telegram that the windows of 8 multi-story buildings were smashed and posted several pictures of the building with smashed windows. Andriy Yermak, head of Zelensky's office, said on Telegram, as of 3 p.m., 12 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, we know of a significant number of wounded. 31 people were taken to a hospital, 9 of them are children, 2 infants, 1 year, and 10 months. Italy freezes Russian assets worth $2.2 billion. Italy's central bank has frozen assets belonging to Russian oligarchs valued at about €2 billion, $2.2 billion, since last year's invasion of Ukraine. As part of EU sanctions against the Kremlin and its backers, Italy seized assets that included bank accounts, luxury villas, yachts and cars. The director of Italy's anti-money laundering unit, Enzo Serrata, said financial holdings worth about €330 million, $360 million, linked to 80 individuals had been frozen. Before the war, Italy's beaches and ports were popular with wealthy Russians who bought properties in prime locations, such as Lake Como, Sardinia, Tuscany and the Ligurian coast. Russian shelling wounds 12 people in Kharkiv. Ukraine's governor of the Kharkiv region says Russian shelling wounded 12 people, including 5 children, in Pervomaisky. On Telegram, Ola Synhyubov said, according to preliminary information, the shelling was carried out with a high-explosive projectile. As a result, several cars caught fire in the parking lot. Currently, 12 injured people are known, including 5 children. He added that doctors and specialists are providing assistance. Russian says forces repelled 10 attacks in Donetsk region. Russia's defense ministry says troops repelled 10 attacks in the Donetsk direction over the past 24 hours, Russian state news agency TASS reported. In the Donetsk direction, 10 enemy attacks were successfully repelled by competent and courageous actions of the defending units of the Southern Group of Forces, ministry spokesperson Lieutenant General Igor Konashenkov said. According to Konashenkov, Ukraine's losses amounted to up to 290 servicemen killed and wounded, 2 infantry fighting vehicles, 9 vehicles, 2 pickup trucks, an Akatsia self-propelled artillery mount, MSTB and D-30 howitzers. He added that air defense systems shot down 2 Ukrainian Su-25 aircraft and intercepted 2 HIMARS MLRS shells and 14 drones. Certain contacts with the U.S. over Wall Street Journal reporter, Kremlin. The Kremlin says there were certain contacts with the United States over the case of jailed Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, but that it did not want to make them public. On Monday, the U.S. ambassador to Russia, Lynn Tracy, was granted access to visit Gershkovich, in the second such visit since his pre-trial detention in March on espionage charges he denies. Ambassador Tracy reports that Mr. Gershkovich is in good health and remains strong, despite his circumstances, a U.S. State Department spokesperson said. We expect Russian authorities to provide continued consular access. Novaya Gazeta journalist attacked in Russian region of Chechnya. Unidentified men have beaten up a journalist for Russia's Novaya Gazeta newspaper and her lawyer in the Russian region of Chechnya, the news outlet says in a statement. The attackers destroyed equipment and documents belonging to reporter Yelena Milashina and lawyer Alexander Nemov after intercepting them on their way from the airport to the Chechen capital, Grozny, to attend the trial of Zarima Musayeva, the mother of two local activists who have challenged Chechen authorities. Novaya Gazeta said Milashina sustained a brain injury and had several fingers broken, and Nemov had a deep cut on his leg. The Kremlin has relied on Chechnya's leader, Ramzan Kadyrov, to stabilize the North Caucasus region after two separatist wars. Kadyrov's security forces have also fought in Moscow's war in Ukraine. Zelensky thanks Sweden's Kristersson for Russia sanctions. Zelensky spoke to Sweden's Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson and thanked him for two sanctions packages against Russia during its 6-month presidency of the Council of the European Union. On Twitter, Zelensky wrote, "We discussed the situation on the battlefield and the latest developments in Russia. This is evidence of a split in Russian society and the weakness of the power vertical. In such circumstances, further political pressure on Russia and military support for Ukraine will be most effective. We agreed to coordinate efforts to bring NATO membership closer for Ukraine and Sweden. We also discussed the pace of implementation of previous agreements on defense support from Sweden. I conveyed to Kristersson the further needs of Ukraine, in particular, on strengthening air defense. NATO chief to lead alliance for another year. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg's contract will be extended by a year as the military alliance grapples with helping Ukraine without triggering a larger war with Russia. Stoltenberg, a former Prime Minister of Norway, has been the alliance's leader since 2014 and has had his tenure extended 2 previous times, including last year after Russia invaded Ukraine. Stoltenberg said on Twitter that he was honored by the decision to extend his term to October 1, 2024. The transatlantic bond between Europe and North America has ensured our freedom and security for nearly 75 years, and in a more dangerous world, our alliance is more important than ever, he said. Russia is more united than ever, says Putin. Putin has told Asian leaders at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, that Russians were more united than ever in his first appearance at an international forum since the Wagner Group mutiny 2 weeks ago. The Russian people are consolidated as never before, Putin told a virtual meeting. Russian political circles and the whole of society clearly demonstrated their unity and elevated sense of responsibility for the fate of the fatherland when they responded as a united front against an attempted armed mutiny. Putin emphasized Russia's unity at a meeting with key allies to show how dedicated he is to removing doubts about his authority following claims that the Wagner mutiny had shown his weakness. Moscow will stand up against Western sanctions, Putin. Russian President Vladimir Putin told a virtual meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization that Moscow would stand up against Western sanctions and provocations. Putin said Moscow planned to boost ties with the group, which includes China and India, and supported the transition to settlements in local currencies in foreign trade. He warned that the potential for conflicts and the risk of a global economic crisis were rising. Lithuania urges NATO to give Kyiv a path towards membership. The president of Lithuania has urged NATO leaders to address Ukraine's push to join the NATO military alliance at a summit in the capital next week. We should not hesitate to take bolder decisions because otherwise, the Putin regime will decide that the Western allies are too weak, that they should be pushed to the corner and they will surrender, President Gitanas Nausėda said in an interview with Reuters news agency on Monday. Our stronger wording on Ukraine's membership perspective would for sure increase the fighting spirit of Ukrainian soldiers on the battlefield. And this is very important, he added. Ukraine has been pressing NATO to declare at the July 11, 12 summit that Kyiv will join the bloc soon after the war ends and to set out a roadmap to membership. Zelensky praises air defense forces, says Europe will be safe with Kyiv. In Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's nightly telegram address, he praised anti-aircraft troops and said there would only be peace in Europe once it had guaranteed its security. On Twitter, Zelensky posted his video address and wrote, "It is obvious that Europe can be protected from any aggression only together with Ukraine and only together with Ukraine in NATO. That is why we must achieve security certainty about our future in the alliance. Then Russia will have to refocus on its own statehood, to finally take care of itself, not some expansions." My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.